Everybody, welcome into the Shelby County High School football show. We are at Helena High School this week. That's where our game of the week is going to take place this Friday night as the Huskies welcome the Homewood Patriots. Sure to be an exciting matchup here between those two teams, new region foes here in the 6A classification, and a big early season battle that could have some implications to who wins the region or who finishes in one of those all-important top two spots to get home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So going to be a lot of fireworks out here at Helena High School on Friday night for this exciting battle, but it is a busy, busy week across Shelby County. We've got a total of 12 matchups taking place this Friday night. Only one team going to be off this week during the opening week of region play. That's going to be the Pelham Panthers, and you look across the schedule. Last week we had a lot of county battles, so the night not quite as busy with the number of matchups. A lot of good games last week. We're going to talk about a lot of those during each segment of this week's show as we look ahead to what you can expect this upcoming Friday night. But nonetheless, maybe not as many county battles, but the opening week of region play and 12 total games. So it's going to be a very important and busy Friday night, and we're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump in. We're going to talk about our game of the week. Then we're going to talk about every other matchup that we have coming up on Friday night. And, of course, at the end, our SCR Stars of the week as we look back at the top performers from the second week of the 2022 high school football season. So let's get to it. It's going to be a fun week of high school football action, and we're going to start with our game of the week right here at Helena High School. I know I get a little bit long-winded. We're going to try to go through each of these games a little bit quicker than usual so we don't have a 2-hour show here this week with all the matchups that we have coming up, but it's hard to go quick with a game like this. This one's going to be a lot of fun between Helena and Homewood right here on this football field behind me on Friday night because of what's at stake. You look at this game early in the season, the opening week of region play, and it almost already has a feel like these two teams are going to be battling for not just a playoff spot, but one of those top two playoff spots in this region this year. And it's a very difficult and crowded region this season. You look across the board, not only these two teams, but you've got Pelham, who's finished in the top two of the region standings the last couple of years, won a region championship 2 years ago. And then you look beyond that, you've got Cullman, who was improved and made the playoffs last year as a 3 seed in this region. And then you've got Briarwood as a new entrance along with Homewood this season, in addition to several others who are going to be improved this year as well. So it's a very crowded region, which makes each week very important this season. And these two teams, two of the teams that came into the season with a lot of expectations to compete for a region championship, making this an important battle. And you look at what the two have done so far. Obviously, Helena played extremely well the first 2 weeks of the season, sitting at 2-0. They open with that 28-6 win against Chelsea down in Montgomery to start the season. And then last week it was more of the same as what they did in week 1. Strong physical run game, great defensive play, and they walk out with a 55-17 win against Buckhorn. Now they get Homewood, who enters this matchup 1-1. They've played a couple of difficult teams as well, especially this past week against an improved Vestavia Hills team in the 7A classification. They lose that one 35-0, but week 1 they open with a confidence-boosting 38-20 victory against John Carroll. So we'll see what that does for the Patriots coming into this matchup off of that 35-0 shutout loss to Vestavia last week. And when you look at how they lost, that's the key concern if you're a Homewood fan coming into this game, because they gave up 200-plus rushing yards to the Rebels, and we all know what Helena wants to do each week, especially early in the season as they continue to gain some confidence at the quarterback position, and that's come out and set a physical tone in the run game, and they've got multiple guys who can run the football this year. Obviously, it centers around Jordan Washington, the returning junior running back here at Helena, ran for 1,600-plus yards last year and is already off to a very good start this year, close to 300 yards so far running the football, even more, closer to 500 yards all-purpose already this season, and he's got 5 touchdowns as well. So he's playing well, but you look beyond that, this is a team that last week combined as a team ran for 300-plus yards in that 55-17 win against Buckhorn in the opener. Very strong, ran for 200-plus yards combined as a team in that game as well. So the run game already clicking, and as they get more confidence with quarterback Dalton Llewellyn, who's come out last week, had a really good game there against Buckhorn. He can run the football, is gaining some confidence throwing the football as well. As this offense becomes more well-rounded, they become more and more dangerous each week of the season, and you pair that up with a very good and physical defense that's also played extremely well the first 2 weeks of the season, giving up 6 points in that opener against Chelsea. Last week they gave up 17 to Buckhorn, but for the majority of that game gave up just 10. So this is a very good defense as usual here at Helena. So going into this matchup, that's what it's going to come down to. Can Homewood be prepared for that physical test, for that physical battle, especially in the trenches? Because Helena's going to come out, try to set the tone up front on both sides of the ball, pound the ball offensively, and then pressure the backfield on the defensive side of the ball and set a physical tone over there as well. So it's going to be very interesting, but this is another tough test for Homewood. You look at that opener against John Carroll, traditionally not going to be the most difficult test of the season. Vestavia, they do get a tough test last week, and they struggle in that one, 35-0 loss. Helena's got a good defense, so it's going to be tough for Homewood to put up points. That said, this is probably going to be one of those physical defensive battles, especially for the first half, so it just comes down to who can set that tone and pick up some big chunk plays in the second half, take advantage of those defenses wearing down. We've seen Helena do that the last couple of years. We've seen them do it already this season. I expect them to be able to handle that this Friday night right here on their home field in a very important early season region game. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this one unfold, see who can set the tone early in region play this year. But the Huskies right now, they look like they're in good shape. Well, now, as we do every week, we're going to go down classification by classification. We're going to start in Class 7A in a big region showdown for the Oak Mountain Eagles as they hit the road for the first time this season. Going to take on Hewitt Trussville at Trussville this Friday night. And you look at these two teams entering this matchup. Oak Mountain, the one sitting at 2-0 and undefeated right now after two tight wins against Northridge and Pelham to open the season. Win 21-17 against Pelham last week, the week before a 23-14 victory against Northridge. Now they get a Hewitt Trussville team sitting at 1-1, but you look at who they've played so far. Their only loss came in the opener, a 37-21 loss to number 1 Central Phoenix City. Still able to put up 21 points on that team, a very physical and good team that's going to compete for a state championship in the 7A classification this year. And then last week, Hewitt Trussville, they lose that opener. They took out their anger a week later. They take down Gadsden City 64-17. So I'd say that's how you bounce back with a win a week after a loss. So for Oak Mountain, you look at what they've done well coming into this matchup. This is a team last year was very good defensively, better than a lot of people thought they might be. I thought they were going to be a strong defense a year ago. I thought they were going to be even better this year. So far, they've lived up to that. This defense has played extremely well early in the season, giving up 17 points last week, obviously 14 in week 1 against Northridge. That said, last week, Pelham had some opportunities. They had chances. They missed 2 field goals. They were in the red zone a couple of times and couldn't walk away with points. You look at that and you wonder, Hewitt Trussville is a team that they're going to capitalize. They're not going to waste those opportunities. They're going to get down there. They're going to score points. So Oak Mountain's got to limit the turnovers. They had a couple of interceptions last week. They struggled with a couple of turnovers. So they've got to limit that week. You can't give a team like Hewitt Trussville extra opportunities and possessions on the offensive side. And then they've got to be ready for a physical test on the defensive side. Not just that, but a speedy and athletic Hewitt Trussville team that's got a lot of speed and can make some big-time explosive plays. So this defense is going to have to be fundamentally sound, be in the proper position, and know what's coming on that side of the football to keep this one close and give the offense a chance to have some success in this game. And you look at what the offense has done this year, and this is exactly what we expected from Oak Mountain coming into the year, kind of like we just talked about with Helena. This is a team that had some returning running backs, a lot of confidence at that position, a pretty solid offensive line, and then the defense. The defense was going to be their bread and butter this year. So far, we've seen those two things pan out. Seen Trey Vassell go over 100 yards the first 2 weeks of the season at the running back position, had a lot of success. And then you look at what that defense has done, like we already talked about. This team's done exactly what we expected, Now it's about the progression of Will Odell at the quarterback position. That's the missing piece, the missing link coming into the season. How will they replace Evan Smith and everything he's meant to this offense the last 4 years? And Odell slowly progressing each week of the season. We've seen the first 2 weeks that progression happen before our eyes. And last week he did have a couple of interceptions. There were some struggles at times. But overall, you started to see that confidence grow in him. And a huge 69-yard touchdown pass to Sawyer Smith in that game as well. So this is an offense that's going to gain even more momentum throughout the season, and especially these next couple of weeks going to be very important for Odell to make some big-time plays and be composed and ready and not let a very physical, athletic, and speedy defense get you down if they do make those big-time plays. That's going to be the number one key for the Eagles going into this matchup, is him being able to handle that pressure. And from what I've seen, he's got the arm as a sophomore quarterback. He's got the size. Now it's just about the confidence and being able to make some of those tight window throws to be able to take Oak Mountain to a dynamic offense this season. I think that potential is there. After this week, this is their toughest game in the first 6 games of the season. After this week, there's a chance for him to gain more confidence going into that difficult second half of the schedule later on. So an important week this week to show what they're capable of and then build some confidence the next 2-3 weeks. After that, I think this offense is going to be in good shape. If the defense stays healthy, Oak Mountain going to have a chance to compete in just about every game the rest of the way. Hewitt Trussville, though, a very talented football team, a team that's in the top 5 of the rankings this season. I expect them to come out, show that on the football field. We'll see if Oak Mountain's defense is able to continue to hold teams at bay and have some success in this game. If so, and if that offense can progress, we're going to see a game that's very tight and probably tighter than a lot of people expect. Going to be a lot of fun out there at Hewitt Trussville this Friday night as these two teams battle, looking to gain some confidence early in region play. Well, it may be the talk of the state right now. The Thompson Warriors, the 3-time defending 7A state champions, sitting at 0-2 on the season. The first time since they went 0-10 in 2014 that this team has been sitting at 0-2 through 2 games of the season. But as I said in my predictions this week, we got to pump the brakes a little bit. You look at that, people are starting to doubt them and starting to think that success, that talent may not be there this year. But I think most people are also realistic in thinking that Thompson's played 2 of the best teams in the country, one of them a top 5 team, one of them inside the top 50 nationally. And they've had their chances. They've been right there with a chance to win both of those games. You look at the opener against Buford, they lose that one, but that was a game that was tight going into the half, a 7-0 game. They trailed 17-7 late in the third quarter, and then after getting within 10 points, there's a kick six and a pick six within a few plays of each other, and that one just gets out of hand late. But that was a tight game against a top 5 team nationally. And then you look last week, take a 14-0 lead on Lipscomb Academy, one of the best defensive teams in the country. Take a 14-0 lead 14-3 at the half, and then in that second half, more costly turnovers. They have a scoop and score of 99 yards. Thompson a yard from taking the lead there in that game late in the fourth quarter, and instead a scoop and score 99 yards puts them down by 10 with about 5.5 to go. Also a pick six in that second half. Zach Sims, his helmet pops off. Hayden Garrison has to come in, and he ends up throwing a pick six. Head coach Mark Freeman said after the game that they had the right play drawn up there. They felt good about it, so they wanted to try to take advantage of that moment. Ultimately, that was part of a second half in which the Warriors struggled, gave up 21 unanswered there, and 14 of those 21 points coming on the offensive side of the football as the offense turned the ball over, leading to those scores. But right there in that football game, yet again, against another top 50 nationally ranked team, and you look at that, now they're prepared. They've played 2 of the most physical and tough defenses in the country through the first 2 weeks. This is an offense that lost just about everything from last year. They're down several offensive linemen, and that's going to be a key focus and a key area for the Warriors moving forward this season, but down a few offensive linemen from last year, one already injured this season, and then you look at what else they lost on that side of the ball. Mr. Football Ryan Pepins, one of the best receivers in the state over the last several years, and then beyond that, obviously Connor Harrell, the quarterback, your top running back, your next top receiver, your next top running back. So just a lot of talent to replace on that offensive side of the ball. And to jump out 14-0 last week, they looked like they had turned a new leaf. They were in good shape, and they looked like the Thompson of old, and then it just got a little bit stagnant. You started to see the offensive line lose a little bit of confidence. You started to see Sims lose a little bit of confidence as well. That's something that they're going to learn from, and they're going to build off of moving forward, because this defense is still one of the best in the country, and they've played well enough to beat two teams inside the top 50 the last couple of weeks. I expect that to continue and be a trend throughout the season. This week they travel to Vestavia Hills, another big matchup for the Warriors to open region play. A lot of people have had a sneaky suspicion Vestavia is improved this year. They're not only going to compete for a playoff spot, but be one of those teams that could surprise a lot of people there in Class 7A Region 3. And if they're going to do it, they can make a bang this week, really make a statement with a win against Thompson. But you look at this Thompson defense and how successful they've been. Vestavia, I just don't see them scoring enough points in this game to be able to pick up a win. You look at what they did last week, obviously a 35-0 shutout against Homewood, so they had that success, but a week before they lose 24-14 to 6A Mountain Brook. Yes, a former Class 7A Region 3 opponent, but they scored just 14 points against a very tough defense. Thompson's defense arguably a little bit tougher than that. Going to be a very physical, athletic, and speedy group on that defensive side for the Warriors, and you look at that, you can't expect that Vestavia is going to score too many more than 14 in this game. So Thompson's goal offensively, protect the football, rely on your defense, get to about 21. That's all you really need. This is a team, I think, that wants to make a statement, though, on that offensive side of the football. So we'll see what they come out and do. This is still a very good defensive football team at Vestavia. They always are. They're a physical group. They're going to be ready to roll in this game with the chance to force Thompson into an 0-3 situation and an 0-1 record in region play early in the season. We'll see how it pans out, but I think the Warriors, people starting to doubt them a little bit. They've got some hunger, determination now. They're going to use that chip on their shoulder to come out, prove a point this week. The defense still going to play extremely well. They're just so good on that side of the football this year. If the offense can turn the page at all, this is a team that's going to be extremely dangerous. Once that side of the ball gets going, it's going to be tough for anybody to slow this team down. And like I said, now with a chip on their shoulder, that's a dangerous combination to have when you've still got a ton of athleticism, a ton of talent, and you've won 3 state championships in a row. They believe that they're supposed to be the best team in the state, and now they want to prove people wrong that are starting to doubt them a little bit early in this season. They've got some tough opponents behind them. That has prepared them. They'll be ready to roll this Friday night in what should be a pretty entertaining game, but eventually I think Thompson's going to get things going, and I think that offensive side of the football is going to make a difference at the end of the night, and if not, that defensive side is going to make some big-time plays and help them walk out victorious in this region opener. Well, that takes us to the crosstown rivalry, one of the best rivalries in the county, as Spain Park will hit the road to the Hoover Met this Friday night to take on crosstown rival Hoover in a game that has a lot of excitement around it for the first time in a couple years, because you've got 2 first-year head coaches leading their teams in this rivalry battle. You look at Tim Vakakis at Spain Park. He's really flipped around this defense. And then you look at Wade Waldrop and Hoover. They're coming off a big-time showing last week against Bartlett out of Tennessee, winning 56-7. You've got 2 teams in this one sitting at 1-1 on the season, opening region play with this rivalry battle. Both want to walk away victorious because they know how much momentum they can get, especially in a rivalry like this. You look at the 2 losses in Spain Park, both their games have gone down to the wire. Opening week against Calera, first quarter, both teams score 7 points. From then on, very quiet from an offensive standpoint. Late in that game, in the final minute and a half, Calera takes a 10-7 lead. And then in that final minute, Evan Smallwood drives Spain Park down. They score. They end up getting a 14-10 victory with about 30 seconds left in that game. Beyond that, last week, another thrilling battle as they're able to take on Briarwood in a very fun and physical football game. Again, about a minute and a half left. They go on a nice drive. They score. They take the lead 21-17, but they left too much time, about a minute and 2 seconds, for 5-star Clemson commit Christopher Vizina at Briarwood. He takes the Lions on a long drive in that final minute. They go on to win that one 23-21. But what we've seen from Spain Park so far is that they're going to test you all the way to the end of the game. Now it's just about that offense taking that next step to take a little bit of pressure off the defense. We've seen the last 2 weeks that late in the game, the defense can be a little bit more susceptible to giving up a long drive because they're having to play so much on that side of the football. And this week against a Hoover team that's always athletic, physical, a great group, it's got to be there throughout the whole game on the defensive side, but you've got to have your offense ready to roll in this matchup, and I think that's going to be a big key. You look at Hoover the first 2 weeks, their only loss 17-14 to number 2 Auburn in the opener this season down in Montgomery. And then last week, like I said, they bounced back in a big way with a 56-7 win there against Bartlett out of Tennessee. So this is a defense that's given up 17 or less to 2 very good football teams. Offense turned the page last week, showed some success, the talent that they have. I expect that to be key for the Bucs this week as they've gained a lot of confidence really on both sides of the football now to this point in the season. But I'm telling you, this Spain Park defense has improved. They are physical. They've got a lot of young talent on that side of the ball that's getting more and more confident each week of the season. Now they've taken on one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They're going to be ready in this one. This is going to be, in my opinion, that defense makes a difference and keeps this a tight game. If Spain Park wants a chance to win, it just comes down to the offense making some big-time plays, and we've seen that they can be clutch the last couple of weeks, but they're going to have to show it more consistently throughout the game to have a chance to win this one. Either way, I think this is going to be a thrilling rivalry. I think we're going to get fireworks back in this matchup as the crosstown rivals meet with their 2 first-year head coaches this Friday out at the Hoover Met. Well, it's time for a new era of Chelsea High School football. The Hornets, they return home for the first time this season and as a Class 7A team, playing in their first Class 7A Region 3 game of the season. And guess what? They'll have a new playing surface to play on. Assuming things roll along the next couple of days properly, that turf out at Chelsea will be finished and they will get to play on it for the first time this Friday night. So a lot of excitement building around this program now in the 7A classification. That said, they're sitting at 0-2 entering this matchup against Tuscaloosa County, and this is a huge opportunity because we all know what's ahead for them. The most difficult teams still left on their schedule: Thompson, Hoover, Hewitt. You look at Oak Mountain sitting at 2-0, Spain Park playing better this year, and now Tuscaloosa County early in Region play, normally going to be one of your better opportunities for a win in Class 7A Region 3, and they're sitting at 2-0 with a couple of good wins early in the season as well. So Chelsea sitting at 0-2. We've seen some positives on the defensive side of the football. This is a team that lost 28-6 against Helena in that opener, but 21 of those points came in the first half. The defense really locked down defensively in the second half. And then last week we saw what they did against Calera, shut them down for the majority of that game to 3 points, and then late in that game gave up a touchdown after taking a 6-3 lead late in the fourth quarter. They give up a touchdown and fall 10-6. But that defense played extremely well, has played well the last 6 quarters of the season, and I expect that to be a continued trend. We knew coming into the season that that side of the ball was really close, a tight-knit unit, and they're playing like it early in the season. Now it becomes about the offense. The offense has to take steps forward if they want to have success, and that unit coming into the season was still trying to form those relationships and become a tight-knit group like the defense. So we've got 2 weeks behind us. Now it's here. You've got to be ready. You've got to be clicking and rolling. You've got 2 weeks of game film to look at and fix your mistakes, and a week of practice to prepare and get ready for this game on Friday night, your region opener at home, your home opener to the season, and your first Class 7A Region 3. It shouldn't take a lot of motivation to get this team excited and to work hard throughout this week to kind of fix up some of those mistakes and get that offense back in good shape. And we've seen, especially in the second half, the last 2 weeks of the season, that they've kind of progressed throughout the game, shown some positives in the second half, and last week a chance really late in that game to win it on the goal line, but a great defensive stand from Calera to stop that and prevent that from happening. So I say that to say Chelsea's shown that improvement on the offensive side of the ball at times, but they're going to have some consistency. They're going to have a run threat to set up the passing threat. because they do have some athletes at the receiver position, but right now there's just not enough balance and not enough threat that there's going to be a big breakout play at some point throughout the game. You look at what Tuscaloosa County's done so far this season. They've got wins against 5A Central Tuscaloosa 44-0. That's to be expected there in that game. 2 classification advantage. Central, normally a pretty average team in the 5A classification. And then a 28-7 win against Bessemer City last week, a 6A team. So a little bit more of a better win a week ago, whereas Chelsea, they've played 2 6A teams, 2 very quality opponents the last 2 weeks of the season, but they've fallen in both of those games to start the year. So now you get a Tuscaloosa County team that's confident. You're going to have to come in, believe if you're Chelsea that you can beat this team, come out excited, have some good plays drawn up offensively, and have some confidence on that side of the ball. I think the defense keeps them in the game. A chance to win this one late in the fourth quarter again for the second week in a row just comes down to the offense making those plays to be able to have a chance to win there late in this one. But at home for the first time as a Class 7A team, new turf, it's going to be a lot of excitement surrounding this game. Possibly the most underrated game of the week is going to be Calera traveling down to Benjamin Russell. These are 2 teams that have shown a lot of promise early in the season, shaping up to be a big early season region game in this region opener. As you look at what the 2 have done, Calera sitting at 1-1. They've taken down a 7A opponent or a 6A opponent last week in Chelsea. As they win that one 10-6 in the final minute. The week before, lose to a 7A opponent in Spain Park in a game that also went down to the final minute, a 14-10 battle there. So this is a team that is so good on the defensive side of the football. One of the best teams defensively in the state this season with that starting rotation. Now it's about that offense continuing to progress. We know what they've got back this season. You look at Preston Stokes, the quarterback, had a great year last year. You look at Daniel Brown, the running back, also a returning player from a season ago. And then Braylon Farrington, the second leading receiver last year, one of the best and fastest athletes in the state this season. The big question, though, can they find that dynamic ability to have that balance this year? Last year, Kobe Prentice, we all know what he was capable of, making big-time plays. Now a projected starter as a freshman at Alabama. That's how talented he was last season and has shown that quickly for one of the best college football teams in the country. So now it's about having a couple of guys step up to help replace that. Farrington's got so much talent and ability to be able to make some of the same plays on the offensive side, but he's going to be double-teamed every week of the season because they know he's the top target. Somebody else is going to have to emerge and take some pressure off of him, take some pressure off of Stokes at the quarterback position, and the offensive line obviously going to have to play well and open up some holes both for the run game and protect Stokes in the pass game to let things kind of evolve there on the offensive side of the football. So this defense, they're going to keep them in every game. That's there's no doubt about that in my mind. That's the biggest key for them if they want to stay in games. If they want to win football games consistently the rest of the way, compete for a region championship, the offense is going to have to become balanced and going to have to show a little bit more to have that success. And you look at what they're taking on this week. Benjamin Russell sitting at 2-0. They've got a 41-7 win against Sylacauga. Sylacauga struggled this year, so that's not anything that's surprising there. But a 33-14 win against Central Clay County, a really good 5A football team. That said, both of those teams down in the 5A classification. Now you take on your most physical test of the season in Class 6A and one of the best defenses in the state. I look at that, and I think you're going to get a low-scoring game here, kind of like we've seen from Calera the last 2 weeks. You've got two defenses that have both given up 14 or less in their first two games of the season. I think that's going to be a continued trend here. I think you're going to see two teams in this one battle it out physically on the defensive side of the ball. It simply comes down to who can make those late plays on the offensive side. Calera's gotten better on that side as the games have gone along the last 2 weeks. They've made late drives to have a chance to win each game, but this week they've got to do it for all four quarters. The defense can keep them in it till the fourth, but defense is going to tire out eventually, so your offense is going to have to make some big-time plays. If they do that this week, they'll pick up a win. They'll start region play 1-0. A huge week for the Briarwood Lions last week as they take down Spain Park in a thrilling 23-21 victory. Spain Park took a late lead, 21-17 in that game. Briarwood led throughout. Spain Park, a good second-half charge in that game, takes the lead 21-17, but they left too much time for Christopher Vizina, the five-star Clemson commit. We've talked about him already once on the show, and now we'll talk about him a little bit more. What an impressive drive, both from him making the plays, not panicking under the pressure, his receivers stepping up, and we're going to talk a lot about that throughout this show, but his receivers stepping up, making big-time catches, and for the coaching staff to make some great play calls and put them in the position to go on that game-winning drive. As they win, they get an untimed down on the final play of the game. They capitalize. You get a touchdown pass from Vizina to Brady Wall, and they win that game 23-17, or 23-21 in thrilling fashion, and it was fantastic from an atmosphere standpoint and from a football game standpoint to see how that game unfolded. Both teams scoring in the final minute and a half to create for a thrilling finish. And now Briarwood, I think they've turned a new leaf. I think that was huge for them from an offensive standpoint, and it didn't start on that final drive. It started in the second half. This is a team that played extremely well throughout the second half. Christopher Vizina, his best game of the season. The receivers gained a lot of confidence, and it looked like a group of seniors that had been close for a long time and had those connections as they were able to just march down the field there in that final drive and in the second half in general. I think that's going to be a continued theme now that they've got that confidence, because that's a very good Spain Park defense, and Briarwood was able to piece things together as that game went along, and that's going to be key. This team's only missing link right now going into the season was at the receiver position and finding those connections with one of the best quarterbacks in the country. That seems to have come along. The offensive line improved before our eyes last week as well, and we all know that Briarwood's defense, they struggled a little bit in the first couple of games at times, but we know they're going to improve throughout the year, especially with the defensive-minded head coach in Matthew Forrester. This is a team, if they get that offense rolling, is going to be extremely dangerous. Now this week, they host Chilton County in a big battle to open region play, and Chilton County looks to be an improved team so far this season, sitting at 2-0. They beat Bibb County 30-24 in the opener, and then Jemison 50-0 last week. That's a 4A and a 5A team respectively, but Bibb County normally traditionally a very good football team. Jemison, not quite as much, but they took care of business in a 50-0 shutout. You look at this game, though, and you look at how Briarwood played last week. You compare them almost to Bibb County, and look how Chilton County played in that one. Briarwood should be a better football team than Bibb County this season. Chilton won that one 30-24. I expect Briarwood to flip that almost around. I think Briarwood's going to have a lot of success on the offensive side of the football in this game. They're going to continue to build off of that confidence from a week ago, and we all know their defense is going to continue to get better each week of the season. I expect Briarwood back at home with that confidence to take care of business, coming off two very physical football games, taking on defending 6A state champion Clay Chalkville in week one and losing 48-0, and then 7A Spain Park, who is drastically improved on the defensive side of the football in a very physical test as well. They showed so much improvement a week ago from week one. I expect them to continue to progress this week, take care of business back at home at Lions Pride Stadium. Well, here we sit 2 weeks through the season, and the Shelby County Wildcats now sitting at 2-0 through their first two games, and it's all about how well this defense has played. They win their opener 14-7 against West Blockton, win last week 21-6 on the road in a rivalry battle against Montevallo, and that's always an athletic group of players, and they limit them to 6 points. So a combined 13 points through the first 2 weeks, 7 or less against those first two opponents of the season. Defense, physical, hard-nosed, they get after it. They're playing extremely well, and that's going to keep them in just about every game this season. Beyond that, you look at what the offense has done. They've only scored 14 and 21 their first 2 weeks, but this is a young group replacing some of their best players at several of the skill positions up front as well. They've come out and they've shown that progression with a lot of young talent playing on the offensive side of the football. 14 in week one doesn't blow you away, but how they handled that game from a management standpoint was perfect. Week two, get 21 against a normally athletic, speedy Montevallo team. Played well in that one and did the same thing. They just managed that game exactly how they wanted to. And if they continue to do that game plan, if they play to their game plan and succeed at it with the defense they have, it's going to be week in and week out that we see similar results for the Shelby County Wildcats. Now this game against Holtville going to be an important region opener when you look at it on paper, because these two teams, this could be a game that determines at the end of the year which one gets a top 2 seed in this region. That's how important this one is. Beyond this, there's maybe 1 or 2 more games that I wouldn't favor Shelby County in this season. So makes this one extremely important against Holtville. And you look at what they've done. They've beaten 4A Fultondale 58-8 and lost to 7A Alma Bryant 35-29. You look at that, and you don't really know what to take away. You don't know much about this team because 7A team normally going to outnumber you, although not one of the traditional powers in the 7A classification. To play within 6 points in a game like that is huge, and that can build your confidence going into a game like this against Shelby County. Week 1 against Fultondale, not surprising they were able to walk out with a 58-8 win in that one against a 4A team. So now it just becomes about which team's going to make a difference early in region play, going to be more hungry, determined going into this game. And Shelby County back at home this week. You look at that defense, I think they can rely on that, continue to trust that the offense is going to progress and manage the game the way that they need to, the way that they have the first 2 weeks. I think that ultimately can make a difference for Shelby County in this game, and it's going to be an important one. But if they continue to play the way they have the last 2 weeks, this is a team that's going to be very good the rest of the season. Not the start to the season that Montevallo wanted. They fall to Shelby County 21-6 in the season opener, but now they've got a game behind them. This is a team that lost a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. One of the best running backs in the state last year, in Joseph Anderson. He's been a starter for several years there for the Bulldogs. He departed the all-time single-season rushing leader in Shelby County history. So a successful season last year, and he is drastically missed right now. And then you look at some other players. Kyle Cottingham, one of the best athletes on the team, played on both sides of the ball, including at quarterback on the offensive side. This is a team that's missing a lot of those key pieces this year. So they needed that week against Shelby County, a team that's a classification higher. Always tends to be a close physical game between those two. And that game is now behind them. They can use that as a measuring stick to see where they are and what they need to work on now going into an important matchup against Hill County this Friday night. And it's a big game and a big chance for Montevallo to bounce back. You've got a Hill County team sitting at 1-1. They lose 35-0 to Northside, and they beat Greensboro 32-16, a Class 3A team. So you look at that, Montevallo should be the favorite in this game. It's just a matter of making that progression on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense is going to be talented again this year, giving up 21 last week. That was a close game for a while. I expect it to be a defense to come back this week, continue to play well, keep them in this game. The offense making that progression with some new players out there is going to be the biggest key, but I think that a week of practice and a week behind them to look at, fix their mistakes, I think that's a huge bonus and help for this team that tends to make adjustments really well under head coach Blake Bourne. I think they're going to bounce back this week, and a big opportunity to do so as they get a chance to open region play 1-0. I think you're going to see a good week for Montevallo this week against Hill County. Boy, have the Vincent Yellow Jackets lived up to the hype coming into the season, a team that returned so much talent, and now they're walking into this region opener with a ton of confidence, sitting at 2-0, fresh off a 56-0 shutout a week ago against Winterboro, a team that they beat they lost to last year by 2 points, ultimately got a forfeit win out of that later down the road, but they lost that game a year ago head-to-head. This year they win 56-0. They wanted to make a statement in that one on the field. They did just that and some. This is a team that's starting to show what they're capable of this season, and beyond that, in their opener against a good 1A Raglan team, they win that one 41-26, a dominant second half there, especially down the stretch as they close that one out with 14 unanswered to walk away victorious against Raglan. Now sitting at 2-0, going into this matchup with Central Coosa, who's sitting at 1-1 on the season. And you look at the two teams they've played, they lost 36-8 to Verbena, pretty good team at the 1A level. And then they beat Talladega County Central, an 0-2 1A team, by 12 points last week. So you look at that, a struggling 1A team They win by just 12. Vincent, this defense has been good the last couple of years, especially last year, showing some improvement on that side of the ball. That was a big key for them a season ago. This year, they've got so much talent on the offensive side of the ball, and the defense is even better than it was a year ago. This team returned just about everybody on both sides of the football besides Jamari Lawson, the running back, who was one of the best in the county a season ago. But guess what? They've gone for over 200-plus yards in each of the first two games running the football this season. So that's a bonus. You look at what they got at quarterback. Blake Olam's back this season, playing well through the first couple of games, and a ton of athleticism around him as well. So you look at this team right now going into this game, they should walk out 3-0. They should believe going into this matchup that they're a 3-0 team and a team that's going to be 1-0 in region play at the end of the night on Friday night. Too much talent to not believe that, and now you look at a 2-0 start with the way that they've played on both sides of the football. They've got to be a confident bunch, and they need to carry that confidence throughout the season and believe week in and week out that they're the best team on the field. Well, that takes us to the AISA and ACSC matchups this week, and we've got a couple of big ones for Coosa Valley and Evangel. Cornerstone going to have a bye week this Friday, but we're going to start with Coosa Valley, and off to an 0-2 start right now on the season. The defense, just like last year, playing well, but the same story. The offense has struggled early in the season. They struggled a year ago. Now they've got to build some confidence on that side of the ball. They fell 21-0 in their opener against Abbeville, 16-6 last week against rival Cornerstone, an in-county battle there. And now you fast forward to this week, and they're taking on Lowndes Academy, who they lost to 47-0 last year, and is a team that only has one loss so far this season, 19-14 to Macon East, which is ranked inside the top 5 of the AISA standing. So a chance for them to bounce back and make a statement. But you look at what happened last year in this game, 47-0. They're going to have to really flip the script this season. I think the defense can keep it tight for a while, but ultimately if the offense can't find a rhythm, that makes the difference in this game. They've got to find some success on that side of the football. As for the Evangel Lightning, this is a team that's been dominant, to say the least. That's an understatement going into their matchup this week on the road at Southern Prep. Evangel's won games so far off to a 3-0 start, 65-13, 55-0, and 48-0. So they've given up 13 points through 3 weeks of the season, 13 or less in every game, and back-to-back shutouts while scoring 48 or more in every game. Now they get a Southern Prep team that's lost 50-7 and 40-0 through the first 2 weeks. Expect Evangel to roll again, 4-0 start. This may be one of the best teams that Tim Smith has ever had, an 8-man team that's playing a lot of 8-man opponents, and they're proving that they may be the best team again in the country, 8-man football-wise. They've still got their toughest games ahead, but watch out. This is a team that's very dangerous and is going to continue to make statements week in and week out. Well, that takes us to our SCR Stars of the Week segment. We're going to name our top players from the second week of the 2022 high school football season, and we've got a long list to get to. We had a lot of county battles, so we got to see a lot of that talent on display against another familiar foe here in Shelby County, and a lot of players stepped up. Even in losses, we saw some really good, some really positive signs from several players, and we're going to mention them on this segment as well. But we're going to start with the Oak Mountain Eagles. Trey Vassell in a big-time showing there for the Eagles for the second week in a row, running for more than 100 yards, totaled 109 on 25 carries with a touchdown as he leads Oak Mountain offensively in that game as they pick up a win against Pelham 21-17 to start the season 2-0. Will Odell, like we've talked about, he's a key piece for this offense as a sophomore. Came out 7-12, 128 yards and a touchdown in the win. 68-yard touchdown pass there to Sawyer Smith as well was a big-time play. Showed what he's capable of in a perfect pass to Smith, who also will be mentioned because he totaled 93 yards and a touchdown on just 3 catches in that game. If they can have the passing game step up like that, watch out. That makes this offense extremely dangerous. On the defensive side for the Eagles, we've seen the potential there already this season as well. Emmanuel Waller, he got hurt in that opening game of the season against Northridge, but he was back last week and he made a statement. 4.5 tackles, 2 for a loss and a sack. He was key up front in that win for the Eagles on the defensive side of the ball. On the other side of that game, the Pelham Panthers lose a heartbreaker. They had some missed opportunities, but you look at what they did to step up. Ethan Hill on the defensive side of the football, 2 interceptions in that game for the Panthers. He's proving himself to be a strong early season player there for Pelham. And on the offensive side, Darius Copeland and Clayton Maines both continue to progress. Copeland's one of the best athletes in the state and in the county this season. Maines taking the reins at the quarterback position has also shown progression there at quarterback. Copeland, 127 yards on 6 catches with a touchdown. Big game for him. And like I said, Maines growing at the quarterback position. He finished with 166 passing yards and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown and 43 yards on the game. So continue to have that confidence and show that progression going to be key for him. And I'm telling you, I saw some big-time throws out of his arm as well. If he can get those throws on target throughout the game, that's going to be dangerous with the athleticism that Pelham has out wide. At Briarwood, Christopher Vizina, we've talked about it already, a huge game for him against Spain Park. He had 262 passing yards, 22 of 31 with a touchdown through the air, and added 96 rushing yards on 15 carries with 2 touchdowns, and obviously that game-winning drive at the end, flawless. He had one bad mistake, and that was intentional grounding, but he didn't panic. He bounced right back, big-time throws, made a great drive there, led Briarwood to the 23-21 win against Spain Park. They avoid an 0-2 start, and he's going to be one to watch out for the rest of the year because they're starting to form those connections at the receiver position, and we'll mention them as well. The BCS receivers, a slow start to week 1. They get shut out 48-0, but this week they found a rhythm, had 4 go for 40 or more yards, 3 had 50 or more, and Wall, like we mentioned earlier, had the game-winning touchdown, and he had 66 yards receiving in that game. So big-time play from that offense at Briarwood last week. On the other side of that game, Evan Smallwood, second week in a row, he stepped up big late in the game. He's a physical guy, a leader by example. He's never going to hang his head and always going to be physical throughout the game. He totaled 211 yards passing with a touchdown, 1 interception, ran for an additional 70 yards, so close to 300 yards all-purpose, and another touchdown. Looked to have that game-winning drive for the second week in a row, but ultimately they just can't hold off Briarwood there in that final minute of the game. That takes us to the Thompson Warriors, sitting at 0-2, but we can't go through what they did this last week without mentioning A.J. Green. He played extremely well on the offensive side of the ball. He was one of the ones that really looked like he wanted that win more than anybody else on the field. Every single play giving that extra effort, running the football hard. He had 20 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown, played his heart out in that game, and I know it was heartbreaking. He was there 1 yard short, the go-ahead touchdown with 5.5 minutes. He tries to extend with that effort to get the touchdown. Ultimately, the ball's knocked loose and scooped up and taken 99 yards for what made the difference there in that game, but that's not something to hang your head on. He was trying. He knew they needed that touchdown, and he was trying his hardest to get in the end zone there. Just ultimately a bizarre play ended up making the difference there, but a strong game from A.J. Green. He's going to be one you want to watch moving forward, and even in a loss, you can't blame anything on this Thompson defense right now. Everybody on that side of the ball deserves some credit and kudos because they've played extremely well against 2 of the best teams in the country through the first 2 weeks. They've played well enough to make them a 2-0 football team. As this offense progresses, the defense continues to play the same. Going to be dangerous for the Thompson Warriors. The Calera Eagles, also several players to mention from what they were able to do last week. Daniel Brown, 19 carries, 118 yards on the offensive side. If he continues to do that, that takes pressure off the passing game. You're going to see some big-time plays emerge there throwing the football if they have that threat of the run. But the defense has been lights out. They're the highlight right now, and you look at what they did. Mason Green, 9 tackles, a fumble recovery at the 1 yard line with 20 seconds left, made the difference in saving that win for the Eagles. And Michael Banks Mason, 8 tackles with an interception as well. So those 2 guys, just 2 of several, leading Calera's defense, which is one of the best in the state so far this season. As for the Helena Huskies, who we'll see right here against Homewood on Friday night in the game of the week, the rushing attack continues to be unbelievable. Jordan Washington ran for 116 yards and 3 touchdowns on 11 carries. So we continue to see him do extremely well. And then A.J. Horsted, 82 yards on 3 carries with a touchdown. As a team, they totaled 339 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. That's unbelievable, and that's what you have to watch out for and be careful for if you're Homewood coming into this game on Friday night. Also have to mention Xavier Guy on the defensive side of the football. 12 total tackles, 2 for a loss in that win. The defense playing well. He had a tremendous game for the Huskies there last week in that win as the defense continues to play well, 17 or less given up the first 2 weeks. That takes us to the Shelby County Wildcats, and like I said, the offensive side, some young talent continuing to show progression. Ryan Sipes had 178 passing yards with a touchdown, also had a rushing touchdown, finished 8 of 12 throwing the football. He helped lead the offensive attack. Bradley Horton also had a successful game on that side of the football with 113 rushing yards, 7 tackles on the defensive side as well, and 2 for a loss. Carter Sheehan also playing on both sides, 3 receptions and a touchdown, also had 7 tackles and an interception on the defensive side of the football. So a lot of guys playing both ways and a lot of guys playing really well right now for the Shelby County Wildcats. As for the Vincent Yellow Jackets, several guys to mention off their 2-0 start. You look at their rushing attack, 238 yards last week, playing extremely well early in the season. That group you're going to want to keep an eye on just as an offense in general with what they're able to do. And Trey Youngblood, another big reason for their success, 103 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns as one of the best athletes on the team there for the Yellow Jackets. As for the defense, what a week they had in that 56-0 shutout. Zach Wright continues to be one of the best tacklers in the county, 15 tackles, second week in a row that he's been in double digits from a tackle standpoint. And Ray Albright, 10 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble with a recovery as well. Just unbelievable. I mean, all those numbers we just threw out there in a very long segment with all of those stars. Great to see. That's going to be a continued trend, I think, throughout the season. We've got some talent in Shelby County this season, and it's going to be fun to watch that progress, especially as we jump into region play. Well, that does it for this week's Shelby County High School football show from here at Helena High School. It's going to be an exciting week ahead of high school football, some big-time matchups, 12 total games, region openers for all of the AHSAA teams this Friday. So a big week, and we're going to have you covered throughout. We'll be right here at Helena, Facebook Live pregame show to get you geared up for an exciting night of action this Friday night. So be on the lookout for that on the Shelby County Reporter Facebook page as we get you ready for all of those games. But that's going to do it. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. We will see you Friday night right here from Helena High School.